James Hagens, 5'11", 177 center from Boston College, expected to go in the top 5 of the NHL draft. What do we know about Boston College's James Hagens? Mario.
If you read online, he's too small to be successful in the NHL.
Correct. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No, James Hagens, he started this cycle of draft analysis and everything as the top prospect in the 2025 NHL draft class. And he hasn't fallen far from that spot. I would say he's probably the number 3, maybe the number 4 guy out of this draft class. And to me, it's not of anything he didn't do in his draft year, since he was named as the top prospect early last summer into fall and October and everything, but just kind of fell down because of what Michael Misa and Matthew Schaefer did or showcased in their draft year. So I don't think Hagens no longer being the top guy is necessarily a slide on his part, but I think what we saw from him at Boston College, what we saw from him with Team USA at the World Juniors was a guy who the biggest part of his game is his skating, finding space, and being able to read plays and make plays. And at the NHL level, it becomes more difficult because of the speed and the size of the guys that you're playing against. But Hagens' skating is his biggest attribute, and I think that's something that will translate to the NHL game and be able to make him one of those slippery players that, we think about Patrick Kane in his prime. Like, he was rarely got hit hard, was a agile skater. Straight line speed wasn't the name of his game, but he could outskate a lot of guys and was a phenomenal playmaker. And I see a lot of that with James Hagens and how he's panning out.
Yeah, not only that, really good in transition, really good. I've been reading a lot of scouting reports on all these guys, but especially Hagens, as it could certainly be a pick for the Blackhawks, and just really impressed by his, the one-touch passing and sort of the elite skills that, look, there's a lot of really good prospects in college, but kind of skilled beyond his age, skilled beyond his experience, and yes, it will get tougher at the NHL level. We got to talk about the fit in Chicago, though, and I do think when you look at what they have up front in the system already, Nazar, Moore, etc., they don't really have any bigger forwards. And while being 5'11" doesn't scare me off, because if he was an inch taller, no one would be talking about it.
Right.
I do think at some point they've got to add a little bit of size here. Could it be done with the second pick in the first round? Sure. Could it be done in free agency or a trade? Of course. But I do think it is something that at this point, when you look at what's in the system, you do kind of have to be a little bit careful in wasting is the wrong word, and using high draft capital for another smallish forward. You don't want to have too much of the same thing on your team unless that same thing is 6'4", 215 with mega speed and 50 goals.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We'd all love to have a team full of prime Eric Lindros.
Yes, that'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as we talk about with all of these prospects and these draft prospects as well, is, at 18, 17, 18 years old, you're not done growing. We've seen in Chicago the physical maturation from draft day to hitting the NHL ice for Kevin Korchinski, for Sam Renzel, guys that are tall, but they need to fill out. They need to firm up. And they've been able to do that in the time that since they've been drafted over this last few years. You don't physically mature until you're into your early 20s. So at 18, if James Hagens is 5'11", 175 pounds, okay, he'll probably get up to that 6-foot marker. He'll probably get up to 180 plus, and I think right at those benchmarks for a physical player, you're not too far off of what Jonathan Toews was. Right. You're not, and that's bigger than what Patrick Kane was.
Nikita Kucherov is 6 feet tall.
Yeah, Nikita Kucherov, not a huge guy. But I get to I get to your point saying that you don't want to have a large portion of who you expect to be in your forwards group to be in that just barely quote unquote league average when it comes to size. You want to be able to have a number of players. You have guys like Frank Nazar and Connor Bedard who very likely are are going to be fixtures in your forwards group, in your top 6 for hopefully their entire careers, that are under that 6-foot marker. Nick Lardis is another guy who's got a lot of skill, a lot of goal scoring ability, who could pan out to be a top 6 guy under 6 foot. Like, I don't think he's ever going to get to that point. But with Moore, I think he's at that range too. You got Boisvert and Spellacy. Those are guys that play, more physical games, that have that size. So if I were the Blackhawks, James Hagens is there at number 3. I'm not afraid of making that pick just because we have, the Blackhawks have so many players that are more similar in size. I think that is something you can maneuver around. And if you have the skill, you have the skill. So and maybe I'm biased being small myself.
Being a short king.
But I just think the skill, the playmaking ability, the way he reads the game, being able to, step up in big games as well and play at those big stages. I'd be all for it if Hagens is the pick.
And look, like playing in college, a lot of the times you're playing against men. Like there's guys on college hockey rosters that are 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
What? You're still in college? Congrats on your doctorate.
A lot of people go to college for 7 years.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's not as if he's playing against other smaller, underdeveloped is the wrong word, but not fully, realized adult humans yet. In college hockey, that is more often than not the case. And 37 points in 37 games, playing for one of college hockey's elite programs in Boston College. So he's been well coached. He's been well trained, nutrition, working out, all the things you need to gain that weight. Maybe he doesn't grow taller, but he'll certainly add from 177 where he's at now. I don't know. I'm not any of these guys, Misa, Hagens, Martone, Frundell, on and on and on. If that's the pick, I'm kind of happy with any of them.
Yeah.
But all things being equal, I would probably opt for a little bit of size over a little bit of extra speed because they do have so much speed in the system already. I'm tempted to go more size, but again, if it's Hagens, it's a solid pick. It's a kid that everyone expects to be a very good player, good in the World Junior Championships. So I have no hesitation about taking him as the pick. But if Misa's on the board, I would take Misa. If Martone's there, I'd probably lead towards Martone, but I think it's a good pick either way. So.
Yeah, I think where the Blackhawks are at, and with it very likely being Matthew Schaefer off the board, any of the top forward players that are still available, I think there's positives to all of them. Very few negatives to any of them. So yeah, I'm comfortable with a lot of them. And with Hagens, like a lot of the guys at the top of this draft classes, doesn't really feel like necessarily a will be in the NHL next year kind of guy. So you have the opportunity for him to go back to Boston College for a second year, be able to, have that development time. We've seen players working at the NCAA level being able to have more practice time and kind of hone more of their skills in that setting rather than playing 60, 70 plus games in a year. And that allows for more, off-ice training and strength training and everything like that that we've seen from college players and why the college route has become more popular. And you have the opportunity for him to also play again at the World Juniors for a second year with Team USA and, go back to...
In a massive role, too.
Yeah, go back and play another, top 6 role and be a go-to player. Have the opportunity to try and go... be part of a back-to-back run for himself, but be part of a three-peat run for the U.S. at that tournament. Like that would be really cool experience. So if he is the guy at number 3 for the Blackhawks, like I think it would be a really solid pick. I don't think there'd be much downside. And yeah, like you said, with the size thing, if you can play, you can play, and there's a lot of different ways to maneuver adding size or checking that box when it comes to how your roster is constructed.
And if he does go back to BC and things work out, he could very much end the season like Renzel and Moore and join the Hawks at the end of the season, start the first year of that contract, give him a sniff at the NHL, and then it's all full steam ahead for 2026-27. It's going to be interesting to see who they pick. Lots of options, lots of really enticing forwards. We'll find out at the end of June.